For 7 years, my public work has been defined by Thelema. I tried to show it as a lived philosophy, not just a lifestyle ornament, to ask why doing your true will matters. But as I've developed and grown as a spiritual practitioner and a human being, the things that matter to me have changed. This channel is changing with me. Why was Thelema tempting in the first place? What did I find valuable in it? The most inspiring part for me was Crowley's dynamic conception of reality. Reality doesn't reduce to just one principle, but two: Nuit and Hadit. Hadit is the unfathomable center of each individual, striving for contact with Nuit, the manifest universe. Nuit and Hadit are both modes of pure nothingness, and together they manifest as pure change. Crowley set this against traditions that imagine ultimate reality as presence or stability. For him, stability had to be united with change. Presence had to be united with annihilation. This wasn't just abstract theory. It had implications for what it meant to be a human being. Human beings are creations of Nuit and Hadit, but also instruments to effect their union. To incarnate Hadit meant to turn your life into a moving image of eternity, to become a god, Rahorquit. The self isn't a given. It has to be built and structured so as to reconcile change with eternity, mortality with immortality. That means learning to face change with resilience and understanding. Crowley even believed that the self could be refined into a body of light, resilient enough to transcend death itself. Ritual magic was the vehicle for this training. It took theology and made it visceral, embodied, dynamic, responsive. Not in the sense of everybody inventing their own religion, but being able to take religious truth and to make it actual for yourself. And the test of practice wasn't whether it felt good or matched some arbitrary moral code. It's whether it made you resilient, whether you could thrive in any environment that you were thrown into. That was the measure of individual godhood. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you want to go deeper into this content, consider supporting me on Patreon. The videos skim the surface, but there's going to be content there every month that goes deeper into these topics. You can find a link to join up in the description for this video. So we have these 4 key components: the dynamic conception of reality, the idea of selfhood as a tool of agency, the flexible and embodied nature of magic, and a quasi-Darwinian, amoral approach to development. All of these made Thelema stand out to me as a serious response to a world in turmoil. Crowley wrote in a time of radical change: empires collapsing, democracies fracturing, authoritarianism rising, war killing soldiers and civilians alike. And that was before World War II. And so he asked, what happens when the moral, religious, and political structures that we rely upon collapse? What happens when every external point of reference is consumed in fire? His answer was the religion of true will. Today we face a situation just as dire. The United States is tearing itself apart. Authoritarianism is resurging globally. Alliances are fracturing. The world watches as the US backs genocide in the Middle East. And looming over it all, artificial general intelligence. Within a decade, it could transform work more radically than the industrial and agricultural revolutions combined. Experts warn it could even mean human extinction. And this time, it isn't nation states building the superweapon. It's private corporations. We need a collective, rational response now more than ever. Instead, we're living through a nadir of rationality. It's not your imagination. There has never been a more dangerous time to be alive. So here's the question: can Thelema meet this moment? My answer is no, and here's why. First, the way Thelema is practiced today is almost the opposite of what drew me into it. Crowley's Thelema, at least as I understand it, was a toolkit for building resilience. A way of building yourself into the kind of person that could move between worlds and even build them. Thelema, as it's lived now, mostly produces people who are able to chat with others in the same niche hobby. It's small, self-referential, inward-looking. Second, it's focused on self-actualization, the top of Maslow's hierarchy, assuming that the lower levels are secure. But what's the thelemic response to losing safety or belonging? What's the answer when survival is in question? There isn't one. I've tried to wrestle with those questions, but I'm in a minority. For most people, Thelema has become an individualistic meta-religion, a container for occultism, paganism, or alternative spirituality. But in times of instability, people don't need containers. They need communities and infrastructures that can step in when all other structures fail. In World War II, churches often filled that role. They provided resources and connection. What's the thelemic equivalent? There isn't one. OTO is insular, and it's led by individuals who would bend over backward to avoid relevance. It's not preparing anyone to face the world. It's a place to hide from it. Now, Thelema can change. It already has, and it inevitably will. But if you're forward-looking, if you want meaningful answers to urgent problems, Thelema just isn't practical. Its best strength was the dynamical conception of self. And there are far more resources for that outside of Thelema than within. And without the extra baggage of Crowley's reputation, secret chiefs, and occult myth-making. As for OTO, I don't expect it to rise to the occasion. If anything, it will get worse. If you've seen the series Yellow Jackets, you have an analogy. Think of a high school clique that starts out cooperative, magical even, and then quickly unravels into cannibalism. There are too many potential antler queens in OTO. No thanks. I don't have a new religion to sell you. I'm not Aleister Crowley, and I'm not a guru. My approach has always been open-ended and experimental. Even when I was a Thelemite, what kept the work alive for me was not dogma, but unfolding mystery. That's what also fueled this channel. I'm not saying I'll never mention Thelema or Crowley in a positive light again. What I'm saying is I'm no longer measuring the success of my work by its relevance to a subculture. In the big picture, Thelema and OTO were just not that relevant. My focus now is on what remains alive when you strip away the inessentials and the dead weight. For me, that comes down to three guiding themes. First, the dynamic nature of reality. Assume change. Assume instability. Assume chaos. Second, the structure of the self. Given chaos, what do I have to become? Who do I have to be? What kind of selfhood can meet the moment? Not alone. Individual willpower is weak. Individual mind is often delusional. We need others. So the question is, how can relationships be built to make us stronger and wiser, rather than weaker and more foolish? Third, contact with reality. What happens when our beliefs, practices, and communities collide with what's real? Do they bring resilience or collapse into delusion? Do they move us toward transcendence or toward oblivion? This is the existential heart of my work. Selfhood isn't for comfort. It's not just for decoration. It's also for survival. It's for metabolizing experience. It's for carrying agency and fire through chaos, across ruptures, and to whatever comes next. So that's why I'm no longer a Thelemite. I don't regret the years that I spent being one. Thelema was not just a tool of self-development for me. It was a way for me to embody my will, embody my voice, and to connect with a community. This channel will keep asking the same questions that drew me into Thelema. What is real? What kind of self can face it? And what happens when our lives collide with reality? Do we break or do we transform? I don't claim to have final answers. What I offer is a commitment to keep asking these questions honestly, to test them against collapse, of self, of meaning, of world, and to share what I find along the way. If those are questions that you're wrestling with too, then you're in the right place.